What's going on? It's your boy Good Morning Nerd, and today we have a very special video. Not only is this my first video, but this is the best video you'll ever see in your entire life, and I'm positive of that. Today's video is none other than top 5 anime games you should have played, but probably didn't. This is my own personal list, so if you feel some type of way about it, that's your problem, not mine. So as always, please leave a like or a dislike. And if you do the dislike option, first of all, fuck you and your mama. But also leave a comment so I know what I can work on to make my videos the best possible in every way, shape, and form. But again, thank you guys for watching. It means a lot to me. So kicking off this list, we have a game called Blood Will Tell. Blood Will Tell came out for the PlayStation 2 in 2004. This game, simply put, is amazing. One of the first things you probably noticed is that the game is in black and white. It's in black and white due to the character not having their eyes at the moment. You actually fight demons in order to regain your body parts, which is something that I haven't seen in any game since this one. And I think it'd be hard pressed to actually find one that does it well, story-wise. Some of the more notable parts and favorable things that this game carries is its deep combat system, its amazing music score, and of course a great story that's backed by the manga. Now in a game like this you can have a lot of fun just beating up enemies, but the boss fights is where this game really shines. Each boss feels completely its own, with their own attacks and their own patterns to follow. Remember, this game came out in 2004. Not many games were out there making compelling boss fights out there in 2004. Most had maybe one memorable boss fight per game. This one, a lot of them were amazing. Again, we come back to the music. Certain bosses have their own musical theme that would kick off and that would get you just hyped in order to fight them, and you couldn't wait to do and pull off certain moves while doing it. And that is one of the reasons I have to recommend that you guys play this game if you did skip it. Even though it has a ridiculously high cost amount, I'm telling you, if there's one game on this list that is actually worth the money, it's probably this one. So, moving on to number 2, we have none other than Naruto: The Broken Bond. Now, this game is amazing. It came out for the Xbox 360, which is why a lot of people were forced to miss it due to it being the only system it came out for. This is what every Naruto game, in my opinion, should strive to be like. It had a pretty good combat system, nice amount of characters that you could pick from and fight with, but most notably, it allowed the player, to pull off jutsus. Now, you would do this by holding down LT and RT at the same time, and then you would move the analog stick to create hand signs. Now, to me as a kid and a huge Naruto fan, this was amazing. Now, going back to it as an adult today, I can see why some people would think this is annoying to be forced to pause combat in order to pull off super moves, and they took quite a bit, at least like 2.5 seconds probably to pull them off like correctly, where your opponent wouldn't be able to hit you, of course, and if they did, you would be stunned out of it. But that's only one of the better reasons that I think you should play this game. The second and third reason I think you should play this game is due to its deep open world. Uh, Going around Naruto's village is extremely satisfying, and there still hasn't been a better game with its exploration than this one right here. So the third reason I think you should play this game is because the story sticks out. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, this story is the same in any game that I play, so what possibly could change? Well, I'll tell you. So this story is way more in-depth in this game than it probably has been in any Naruto game before or after it. Um, some of the more notable pieces that sticks out to me personally is the death of the third Hokage. You're actually at the funeral, and you can walk around and you'll talk to your master Kakashi, which is super awesome when you think about it, because most games would just skip over that, but this game does a great job with the little details. It also does a great job with the training segments of Naruto and Pervy Sage, where Naruto is learning how to use the Rasengan. for the first time, and then after that, of course, he uses it all the time. But certain story aspects, such as that one, really makes this game stick out to the player. So coming in at number 3 is Afro Samurai. This game came out for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. It's a beat 'em up slasher with heavy sword play elements, of course. Um, one of the more notable characteristics of this video game is the fact that Samuel L. Jackson retakes his role as a sidekick, and of course RZA is back doing the music as a composer. RZA being from the Wu-Tang Clan, if you didn't know that. Uh, Honestly, out of every game on this list so far, this is probably going to be my least favorite one due to the gameplay elements. The combat can feel clunky, but when you do pull off like certain moves and you chop a guy in half, it's fun. It's always fun to chop a guy in half in a game where there's swordplay. Uh, More notable aspects of this video game, of course, are the music, the storytelling, which follows Afro on his way to get the number one headband. And other notable aspects are the boss fights. The boss fights on this game actually played pretty well. I know a lot of people probably didn't like the boss fights due to them feeling pretty clunky and also repetitive. But when you figured it out and you're having a sword fight where it's sword versus sword, it's kind of one of those things where, for the time period and for what this game was going for, it's not going to be perfect. And as long as you realize it's not going to be perfect, then you'll actually enjoy playing the game. Now, because the boss fights were kind of clunky, uh, like I said before with the combat, it did feel a little cheap if you did lose a battle. This game also did a pretty bad job at telling the player what you needed to do. I remember in one boss fight, it was like you had to have the villain break pillars in order to have like a building collapse on himself, if that makes any sense at all. But the game didn't tell you that. So I was literally fighting the guy for like 25 minutes straight, and it's like, dude, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing until I took like 2 steps back, and then he hit a pillar, and it like finally clicked in my head, like, oh, this is it. But elements like those can kind of get on your nerves. But I also think this game is probably the cheapest on the list, and that's why I kind of like really wanted to recommend it, because I understand a lot of you guys don't have a ton of money to waste on video games, and for this one for it to be so cheap in price, I think it's still like one of the better games to play for the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3. I think the PlayStation 3 version may be a little bit more superior, but whatever version you get is going to be awesome. So kicking off the number 4 spot, we have a game that means a whole lot to me and is probably one of the more sentimental games on this list. Next to Naruto, we have a game called One Piece Grand Adventures. This game came out for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox original console. Now, automatically, you're probably looking at this game and you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is the most ugly piece of shit looking game that I've ever seen in my life. How could you play something like this? And I'll tell you how. Like, this game really got me into anime when I was younger, due to my mom looking at it and going, oh, it's just like some cartoony mess. Of course, you can play that and get that, but this gameplay is amazing. It's very deep for something that looks the way it looks. It has a very large roster. All the villains from the first like 4 arcs are there, which is a crap ton. You'll also notice that many of the characters have special moves, and when you pull off a special move, it actually acts as like kind of a cutscene, if you would, and it's a really fun, really nice looking cutscene that allows the player just the right amount of time to sit back and kind of look over at his friend and give him that taunt, like, yeah, I got you. There's no way that you're going to beat me from this. Music was done pretty good for a game this old. It being produced by 4Kids, you weren't given like the full One Piece vibes of today, where it's like pirated music and things like sea shanties. Instead, you're given a more upbeat, more kiddie type music, which actually fits to the tone of this game more so than it should. With it being a One Piece game, you think it'd be taken a little bit more serious, but this is definitely made for kids. I'd get it for like my niece or nephew, or my younger brother or sister if I had one, and to just try to see if they like anime. And you couldn't go wrong. Again, this is a game that's made for like couch co-op, and it's guaranteed that you, the player, are going to have a crap ton of fun playing the game by yourself or with others. I mean, there's a lot of story there. You have like the first four arcs, you go and get Robin and Sanji and Usopp. I think it ends right before Chopper. I may be wrong, but I'm not 110% sure. But again, this game, simply put, for the price, is really fun to play, and it's definitely something you should be on the lookout for if you have a PlayStation 2 or an original Xbox console just sitting around at your house. So the last game on this list is actually the only game for a handheld console. This game is called The Legacy of Goku 2, and it came out for the Game Boy Advance. This game is my favorite Dragon Ball Z game of all time, cutting very closely to, of course, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, but way, I can't stress this enough, way better than the newest Dragon Ball Z game, Kakarot. And you're probably thinking to yourself, why are you comparing Kakarot to a Dragon Ball Z game that came out for the Game Boy Advance? And I'll tell you why. Because Kakarot technically is a RPG. That's right. Apparently Kakarot is a RPG, but it's not a good one. Somehow it's a pretty piss poor one, if I'm being honest with you. But the Legacy of Goku 2, however, is a pretty good RPG that allowed you to customize your character stats. It played really well when fighting other characters. It gave you the options to play as Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and I may be wrong. I know Trunks you can play as, but I'm not sure if you can play as Krillin. But I mean, it's a Game Boy Advance game, and it allowed you to play as all those characters in a RPG type setting, in which you would battle through Dr. Gero and Cell and the androids. The gameplay is kind of repetitive for a game like this. It's basically A button is your punch button, and B button is your special attack button. But surprisingly, it never felt bad. It always felt pretty decent. You could pick 2 super moves, and I think you could also go Super Saiyan as soon as you unlocked it. So there's certain characters definitely played a little bit different than other ones. Trunks had a different punch combo as well as different super moves. Same thing with Gohan. He had like the Kamehameha and the Masaiko. And then, of course, later in the game, he could turn Super Saiyan when facing off against Cell. The gameplay definitely shines in the beat-em-up aspect when you're fighting multiple enemies on screen, but definitely fails to bring anything to the table in the way of boss fights, which all felt repetitive. It was literally punching with the A button and then like hiding behind a tree, so you could kind of spam stuff, because the tree would like block the enemy's power attacks, because they would always be like 5 or 6 levels higher than you, so you kind of had to cheese it at some points. But overall, the game was really fun, and it's probably the best Dragon Ball Z RPG to date. It allowed you to train with other characters. The side missions all felt pretty fun, including going out around the town to find Mr. Hercule's sandwich, which in itself is hilarious. But with that being said, this is the last game on my top 5 anime games list that you should have played but probably didn't. So please leave a like if you did like what you heard and saw. Go ahead and leave a dislike if you didn't like what you seen or heard. But once again, I ask that you leave a comment down below explaining what I can work on so I can make future videos just a little bit better. Alright, peace.